Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everybody. This is Geoff with Fluent American checking in again. My apologies for our late start. As soon as I was starting up, my connection to the microphone just completely broke. So I had to scramble and get it back up. But yeah, so today you can catch us on the Lang 8 stream, or you can catch us on YouTube. Replay will be available on YouTube. And of course, we're going to be analyzing some people's audio and pronunciation today. What's up, Miami? Good to see you. So if you are interested, hello, Mukat. If you are interested in getting your own pronunciation analyzed, you can send it to me. Actually, let me put on the link to send that. Hey, what's up, Rod? Thanks for joining us today. So again, we're going to be analyzing your pronunciation. What's up, Hisham? And yes, Miami, we're going to be correcting your pronunciation. That's our goal for today. So I'm going to send in the links. I'm going to post the links in case you're interested in getting your own pronunciation analyzed. How you can do that. Some people already have. Hello, Sita. Thanks for joining us. Give me a moment to just get some things started. So again, some links as we go through this. Hey, Hisham, thank you so much for the hearts and things like that. I appreciate that. So basically what's going to happen is I have a sentence that I've been asking people to say for me. And then basically I have the audio files. So we're going to take a look at them. Hey, what's up, 101 Star Wars fan? Mentioning Philly pronunciation versus New York pronunciation on the Lang 8 stream. That's definitely true. Trying to get the links for you guys in case you're interested in sending it. If you're on the Lang 8 channel, you won't see that. So you can find it if you go again to youtube.com/fluentamerican. You can find me there. And you can find the links to check out. Not quite in that one. Almost there. So basically what you can do is there's a website called, Vocaroo? And you can basically record your own audio there. And then it'll send you a link. If you send me the link, I'll be able to take a look at it. I'll put all of those steps into the chat box on YouTube. Yep. So in case you're curious and you want to have your own pronunciation analyzed, but you haven't sent me a file, you can do it right through there. And of course, if you have other questions related to pronunciation that you would like to discuss, or English or things like that, I will be happy to take a look at it. All right, let's take a look. And again, you can see the steps here. Okay, so again, the recording is going to be for this sentence. He really loves a good horror movie. He really loves a good horror movie, but she isn't much of a fan. Okay, she really loves a good horror movie, but she isn't much of a fan. So we're going to be taking a look at linking. We'll take a look at vowel sounds. We'll take a look at stress and things like that. Okay, and again, you can send your own audios for that. If you're in YouTube, put it in the chat box. We have a question here from Miami really quick. So teachers always told me that putting because is incorrect at the start of a sentence. But yeah, so because, when you're using the word because, it's not wrong to put because at the start of a sentence. It is wrong, though, if you don't finish it. So if you put because at the start of a sentence, it's very easy to write an incomplete sentence. You need to make sure that after because, there's a subject and a verb, then a comma, and then another subject and a verb. What a lot of people do is they forget to add the second subject and verb. So for instance, if you said, because I was late, well, that's not really a correct sentence. It's not a complete thought. But if you said, because I was late, I missed the test. Now that's a complete sentence. Because I was late, you have because, then the subject I, then the verb was. Okay, so that's a complete thought. And then after that, I missed the test. I, subject, missed, verb. Okay. And we see some more examples from Mukat. Because I was so thirsty, I drank a lot of water. Instead of drunk a lot of water, I drank a lot of water. That's perfectly fine. So because I was thirsty, first part, I drank a lot of water. That's perfect. Okay. Because I was thirsty, I drank a lot of water. I have a dog because I bought it at the store. If you said I have a dog because I bought it at the store, so if you have because in the middle of a sentence, you don't need a comma. So I have a dog because I bought it at the store. In that situation, you don't need the comma. Okay, so just things like that. All right. For my friends on the Lang 8 stream, I'm going to be listening to some audio. You guys are going to see me put on my headphones. That way I can hear the audio. Just a note, if you're on the Lang 8 stream, you will not hear the audio, but you will hear my feedback as I'm giving that. Okay, so if you want to hear the original audio, be sure to check out the stream on YouTube. Okay, let me put on my headphones. And of course, if you guys have other questions and things that come up, be sure to let me know. Where's our friend? Okay, so I'm going to share with you guys this. One moment. Okay, so you guys should be able to see this. Okay, so again, what's going to happen, I'm going to play the original audio, and then we'll just kind of talk about what I'm hearing for the sentence. And again, our sentence, just to remind you, he really loves a good horror movie, but she isn't much of a fan. I'm going to actually pin that. Give me one second. Really loves a good horror movie, but she isn't much of a fan. That's going to be our sentence that we're going to be focusing on. She isn't much of a fan. Okay, I'm going to show that so that way when you guys are listening, this is what we're going to be listening to. Okay, so for our first one, let's take a listen. Okay, I'm going to play it out one more time. Pay attention to that. So again, on the YouTube stream, you'll be able to hear that. Listen to it one more time. Okay, I'm hearing like a good horror movie. So that's the first thing. Let's go to that. Let's actually kind of start with the beginning. He really loves a good horror movie. A good horror movie. I would personally consider horror movie to be a compound noun. A good horror movie. He really loves a good horror movie. So in this case, what I would suggest doing is I would suggest putting the stress on horror instead of movie. What's the difference? So if you say horror movie, that means that you stress horror, not movie. But if you say horror movie, that means that you stress movie. A horror movie is a specific type of movie. So I would suggest putting the stress onto horror, not onto movie. Let's listen to the beginning part. He really loves. How about that word loves? Loves. So again, when I'm hearing like le versus la placement to me sounds a little bit tense and a little bit high. I'm hearing like le versus la, trying to get that a little bit lower in the throat, a little bit more relaxed. So again, la. Compare that one more time. See if you can notice that difference. He really loves versus he really loves. He really loves versus he really loves. Again, just trying to get that a little bit lower in the throat. Okay. We have a note. Can't hear the audio. Interesting. Give me 1 second. I'm going to stop sharing just for a moment. Okay. Maybe I didn't press the phone. I'll share the screen. And make this way bigger so it's not distracting. Okay. One-on-one Star Wars fans, see if you can hear this. First part.
He really loves a good horror movie.
He really loves other people stopping in for a live stream. Hello, Candy. Hello, Sisha. So again, I'm hearing he really loves versus he really loves.
He really loves a...
Okay, and you can hear that now. Great. So you hear the audio. Okay. Question, how long are these streams? Usually Saturday live, so we're going until probably about 2:30 my time. It's about another half hour or so. We'll see how we do on time. So he really loves. He really loves
a good horror movie.
Good horror movie. Good horror movie. So that's kind of what I'm hearing for that second part. A good horror movie versus a good horror movie. A good horror movie. So again, you have this compound now with horror. Okay, so that's the first thing. The other thing I would say is that good, you probably don't need to stress quite as much. Hey Faz, thanks for joining us and all the other people joining. So again, if you just stopped in with the stream, you can listen to our audio and things like that on the YouTube stream. Basically, we're analyzing people's pronunciation for a sentence. Okay. So he really loves a good horror movie versus he really loves a good horror movie. Put a stress on horror. Let's take a listen to the second part of this sentence.
But she isn't much of a fan.
She isn't much of a fan versus she isn't much of a fan. So again, I think some of our placement is still a little bit tense. Firstly on fan. Okay, so it's not fan, it's more fan. Let's try to play that back again.
But she isn't much of a fan.
I hear fan versus fan. Again, try and get that sound lower in the throat, more relaxed and things like that. Seashell Baby, you can send your recordings if you go to the YouTube stream. I have notes in the chat box about how to send it. Okay. She isn't much of a fan. The other thing I would take a look at is the word isn't. Let's see if I can find that again.
Good horror movie, but she isn't much of a fan.
So it says she isn't, it's more she isn't. Watch out for that short I sound. So it's not easy, it's more isn't. She isn't much of a fan. Okay. And again, the youtube.com/Fluent American for the channel name. She isn't much of a fan. So let's just play that one last time.
He really loves a good horror movie, but she isn't much of a fan.
He really loves a good horror movie versus she really loves a good horror movie, but she isn't much of a fan. Okay, so that's what you want to hear. So for those adjustments for that first one. All right. If you guys have questions about anything from that first sample, be sure to let me know. Otherwise, we will move on to number 2. Let's take a look, listen to the second one. Okay. And again, if you want your own audio, so there's a question. So Mookcast says she isn't much of a fan. Yeah, she isn't much of a fan. If you want your own recording analyzed, you can take a look at vocaroo.com and send that onto the YouTube chat. Second one.
He really loves a good horror movie, but she is not much of a fan.
Okay, thanks for this audio. Okay, let's take a look into that first part again.
He really loves.
So a couple things here. Your long I sounds, a lot of these sounds are too tense. He really, so instead of really, it's more really. Compare that again. Really versus really. Try and get that a little lower in the throat, more relaxed. He really. Next word.
A good horror.
Really.
He really loves.
Hear that? Loves. Almost sounds like laughs. So a couple things here. Loves. Schwa sound. Okay. So again, loves. More of a schwa sound, lower in the throat. More relaxed as well. It's not la. It's more la. The other thing too is that it has a voiced final sound, so it's like vzz, making sure that your throat's vibrating for that ending. Vzz, loves. Really loves. So it's not really. It's more really. Short I, long I. Really. Mookcat, I hope that helps. So again, really loves.
He really loves a good horror movie.
So I'm hearing a good horror movie, kind of like that movie. So a couple things. Watch out for the word a good. This sound is so tricky for so many people. Good. The back of your tongue is high, front of your tongue is down. And again, super relaxed. Mouth can be a little bit wider. It's like good. Okay, good.
He really loves a good horror movie.
Good. And we got some more examples on the Lang A stream. So good, book, cook. Yeah, all these examples are examples of that sound. Okay, it's like good, book, cook, should. Sounds. How about horror? Horror. For my people studying American English, this is going to be a good word because so many R sounds. They're so strong. Horror. Try to get that first R strong. Horror. So it's like That's the combination that you want to practice a little bit. Horror. It's like It's like It's like two parts. Okay. Mookat's saying that these pronunciations are hard. Yeah, these things take time. But they're also things that, if you're not used to hearing it or knowing mentions these things, it's very easy to overlook them. But these are kind of the minor things. So horror, yeah, it's kind of ending like with this sound, So it's like It's like two of them attached. Horror. And then the movie. Let's listen to that again.
He really loves a good horror movie.
Movie. Good horror movie. Versus movie. This is a super common thing that I see with a lot of students is when you have a long I sound at the end of a word, make sure that it maintains the long I sound. What I see so many students doing is they reduce it. So instead of getting movie, you get movie, but it's not movie, it's movie, a good horror movie. So again, just listen to that original one again. Okay.
He really loves a good horror movie.
Versus he really loves a good horror movie. And the next part?
But she is not much of a fan.
But she isn't much versus she isn't much. So again, long I, short I confusion. Again on isn't. It's not isn't. It's isn't. Okay. And then instead of much, it's more much. Again with that schwa type sound. Okay.
Movie. But she is not much of a fan.
Of a fan. Notice what a couple things here. It's like of. Of very often is actually going to have a it's going to have a first of all, it's a schwa sound to start, but that F sound is typically going to sound more like a V sound of especially when it's doing some linking, like you have here of notice like linked with the V of isn't much of a.
Is not much of a fan.
And that's going to help if you're linking too, because right now this is sounding very detached, like of a fan versus of a fan. The last thing here that you want to pay attention to is the word fan, which has that a sound. And we've mentioned this so many times before. When you have an a sound that links with a nasal sound, like N or M or NG, it's going to break into two parts. Again, like and. So again, get the heavy breath out of your nose. Fan. She isn't much of a fan. Play that one last time for that whole sentence.
He really loves a good horror movie, but she is not much of a fan.
He really loves a good horror movie, but she isn't much of a fan. Because just kind of compare those two together. All right, so that was our second example. Mukat mentions that they really like a good horror movie. I have to be in the right mood for a horror movie. It set me off for a week after I watched it.
He really loves a good horror movie, but she isn't much of a fan.
Okay, I liked the so for this one, I thought that the emotion was a little bit stronger. I thought the emotion was a little bit stronger. I thought the tone, it kind of carried, there's more variation. You know, the highs are a little higher and the lows are a little lower. And that's really good. Okay, that's going to make you sound more natural. When people are listening to you in English, they're listening for variation. If you think that you sound flat or robotic, like a robot, a lot of people when they learn English tend to feel that way. The cause is probably that you don't have enough variation. It's like you're saying everything at about the same volume. You're saying everything at about the same pitch. You're saying everything at about the same speed. And that's not going to make you sound natural. The key thing is like adding variation. Go up sometimes, go down sometimes. Speak really fast sometimes. Speak slower sometimes. These are all techniques that you can do to make yourself sound more natural. So I think this has a wider variation. Let's listen to the first part here.
He really loves a good horror movie.
Really, you probably could have held that E sound just a touch longer. Really, he really loves. For that first part again.
He really loves.
So he really loves versus he really loves. We'll just hold that E sound just a touch longer. Let's listen to the word loves again.
He really loves a good horror.
I feel like it could be a little bit more schwa.
He really loves.
So I'm still getting loves versus loves. Loves could still be a little farther back and a little lower. Loves
a good horror movie, but she isn't.
Same thing with the word but. So it's not ba. It's more but. a good horror movie, but also let's listen to that good horror movie part. Okay.
Really loves a good horror movie.
I'm hearing a good horror movie, a good horror movie. So again, stress. We saw this, I think, in the first one. A good horror movie versus a good horror movie. This is a compound noun, so you want to stress horror. Hello, Amar. Thank you so much for joining us. And again, Amar, if you want to see our audio that we're working with, you can find us on the stream on YouTube at youtube.com/fluentamerican, so you can hear the original audio. A good horror movie. He really loves a good horror movie versus a good horror movie. Stress horror. A good horror movie. See if you can notice again the stress pattern that he's using.
He really loves a good horror movie.
Yeah, because I'm hearing good horror movie versus a good horror movie.
But she isn't much of a fan.
She isn't much versus she isn't much. She isn't. She isn't. Some nice linking there too between the E, long I sound, and the short I. She isn't. It's like a isn't, she isn't much of a fan. Okay, so it's not she isn't, it's more she isn't. She isn't much of a fan. I want to hear that last part again.
But she isn't much of a fan.
Fan versus fan. I think it could just get a little bit more ass sound, just slightly stronger on fan. She isn't much of a fan. All right, so I'll play the original audio, then say the sentence again.
He really loves a good horror movie, but she isn't much of a fan.
He really loves a good horror movie, but she isn't much of a fan. Okay, so you compare those two sentences and differences between them. All right, just going to take a look at our third one now.
He really loves a good horror movie.
Really loves. I hear that loves part again.
He really loves a good horror movie.
A good horror movie. Again, stress on movie, like we've seen before, but again, I was probably stress horror. Good horror movie. Also, again, the loves to me is still sounding. I think the placement is low, but it sounds a little tense.
He really loves a.
I hear loves. I'm not sure if you guys can hear that loves, but I'm hearing more. I would like this to be more loves. So it's not loves. I think the placement's in the right spot, like low in the throat, but it feels really closed off, like not enough air is coming through. More air through the throat, as much air through the throat as you can. Really wide, really open. Loves. Really want to try to get that more open because this is sounding too close to me. One more time, see if you can hear that difference.
He really loves a.
He really loves versus he really loves.
Good horror movie.
And again, a good horror movie versus a good horror movie. Probably want to stress the word. Again, like we talked about, horror. So question quick from Muka. How do you pronounce the word urban? Just like that, it's like just an R, right? Just and then bin, like bin, like the container. Bin, urban. Okay. That's the word for urban. Just a quick note from my Lang. 8 people, my battery is dying. I'm sorry, my charger didn't work too well today, apparently. So the battery's at 10%. I will keep this going as long as I can. Oh, Mukat, thanks so much for the heart. I appreciate it. Yeah, I think we might be able to make it, but just a heads up. I'm trying to go for about 10 to 15 minutes. I think we'll be out.
But she isn't much of a fan.
Let's listen to that last part again.
Good horror movie, but she isn't much of a fan.
She isn't much of a fan. One thing I really like with this is that I think the stresses are really good. She isn't much of a fan. The stressing isn't stress on fan. And I think those are natural places to have a stress. English, if you're not sure where to put the stress in a sentence, deciding on one of the last content words, like a noun, towards the end of a sentence is always a great place to put the stress. Super natural place, super common. She isn't much of a fan. Let's listen to that last part again.
Really loves a good horror movie, but she isn't much of a fan.
But she isn't much of a fan. Yeah, I think the stresses are in a really great spot. Besides that, what can we recommend?
He really loves a good horror movie, but she isn't much of a fan.
Maybe a little bit of schwa sound on but. It could probably be a little bit more but. I feel like I'm getting a little bit ba versus ba. Probably a little lower in the throat. That's a minor thing. Hello, thanks for joining us, people on the Lang 8 stream. Let me play it one more time.
Really loves a good horror movie, but she isn't much of a fan.
And maybe again a little bit more short eye on isn't. So it's not isn't much of a fan. It's more isn't much of a fan. But in general, I thought the stresses were pretty good. All right, so let's listen to that whole one again. And then I'll say it again for comparison.
He really loves a good horror movie, but she isn't much of a fan.
He really loves a good horror movie, but she isn't much of a fan. Okay, so that's for comparison. I believe I have 2 more for you guys to take a look at. Again, if you want to have your own pronunciation for this sentence analyzed, visit the YouTube stream and send me a link to the Voca room, and then I can analyze it. Okay? All right, let's take a look at the next one.
He really loves a good horror movie, but she isn't much of a fan.
Okay, I think in terms of stresses, this is probably the strongest one for stresses. I think we got them in the right spots. Let's listen to that first part again.
He really loves a good horror movie.
He really loves a good horror movie. Really loves a good horror movie. Yeah, I think the stresses are in the right spot. I'm hearing the stress on horror, which is great for a horror movie. A really good horror movie. What else can we recommend here, though?
He really loves a good horror movie.
He really loves a good horror movie. She also adding some stress onto really. He really loves, and that's okay. You know, I think really is one of those words that it often does receive stress in a sentence. It doesn't necessarily have to, but it's one of those words that I think you're going to hear native speakers put a lot of stress on, that a lot of language learners, people who learned English, aren't necessarily putting the stress on. And again, there's nothing wrong if you don't put the stress there, but it is a way to kind of convey a little bit more emotion. And one thing that I think, you know, if you go to the US or you talk to people in the US, you'll see a lot of people are relatively expressive, especially compared to, you know, I think if you compare a lot of like native speaker English versus people who learned English, there's just not as much emotion conveyed a lot of times. So one way you can do that is by adding just a little bit more stress onto your adverbs. It's like words like really, or like so, or like if you use adverbs like completely, or like never, or words like that. You know, these are words that you could consider putting the stress on just to add a little bit extra, a little bit of spice, a little bit of flavor to your language, so a little bit more natural. What else was I going to say for this?
He really loves a good horror movie.
He really loves a good horror movie. He really loves a good horror movie. I really don't have much to say about this. I think it works fine. I think it sounds natural. I would say that it doesn't sound conversational to me. It almost sounds like, again, kind of like you're reading a sentence, which is, I get, that's the exercise. I asked you guys to read a sentence, so that's what you did. But it sounds like you're reading. It doesn't sound like you're talking to someone. And I'll play that part again and see if you can hear what I mean.
He really loves a good horror movie.
He really loves a good horror movie. He really loves a good horror movie. Like it's very nice. It's very pleasant. It sounds like you're reading. It doesn't sound like you're talking. One way to adjust that, maybe put a little bit more stress on horror than on really. He really loves a good horror movie. You know, he really loves a good horror movie. He really loves a good horror movie. Other things too, you could potentially play with stress. You know, imagine like a context where this sentence would appear. Like maybe you're talking about your brother or something like that. Hey, Giovanni, take care. So like you could put the stress on he, like he really loves a good horror movie. You know, my brother, he really loves a good horror movie. He really loves a good horror movie. Other things too, your stressed words you could consider holding longer. He really loves a good horror movie, or he really loves a good horror movie. You know, it's like things like that can just help make it sound a little bit more natural as opposed to like reading. So maybe like play with your stressed words, make them even more stressed because they're holding the vowel even longer just to make it stand out more. Like he really loves a good horror movie. He really loves a good horror movie. He really loves a good horror movie. That's another way you could do it. You could add more stresses. You know, maybe you want to emphasize it was really good. It's like he really loves a good horror movie. A good horror movie. Hey, thanks for joining us on the stream, XR. So those are just some ways that I think you could avoid sounding like you're just reading off the page. How about the second half of this?
But she isn't much of a fan.
She isn't much of a fan. Let's listen to that part again.
He really loves a good horror movie, but she isn't much.
But she isn't versus but she isn't. Again, a little bit of a long I sound on isn't as opposed to like a short I sound. So instead of easing, it could make it more isn't.
Of a fan.
And again, on fan, you could probably still get a little bit stronger on that and sound that we mentioned before with the a plus the nasal. Fan. She isn't much of a fan. All right, I'm going to play that whole thing again, and then I'll repeat the sentence.
He really loves a good horror movie, but she isn't much of a fan.
He really loves a good horror movie, but she isn't much of a fan. Okay. Another thing, too, you have an opportunity for some contrastive stress here. So, for instance, for contrastive stress, what you're often doing is you're emphasizing the differences between two things. It's like this or this one or this one, the fridge or the oven, the red book or the blue book, things like that. Seashell Baby mentions the link got deleted in the comment section. Oh no, Seashell Baby, can you try posting it again? What I would say, or you can also you can send me an email at speakfluentamerican@gmail.com, or you can send me a message or something like that. But YouTube, the chat would be the best option. See if you can make another file if it got deleted. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what happened. Also, if I'm not able to get the audio in this live, still send it to me anyways. You can put it in the comment section, or you can send it an email or something like that, and I'll send you some quick feedback on that. Okay. And thanks. I saw Muhammad joined. Hello, Muhammad. Hello, indeed. Okay, so those are the audios that I have, which seems like it's working well for time because I do have a class in about 10 minutes or so. But let's just take one last comparison. I'm going to play for you the original file that I have, and then I'll read it again. And of course, if you guys have questions as I go through this, be sure to let me know. How about our first one again?
He really loves a good horror movie, but she isn't much of a fan.
He really loves a good horror movie, but she isn't much of a fan. How's the second one?
He really loves a good horror movie, but she is not much of a fan.
He really loves a good horror movie, but she isn't much of a fan. Third one.
He really loves a good horror movie, but she isn't much of a fan.
He really loves a good horror movie, but she isn't much of a fan. Okay, so again, for comparison, next one.
He really loves a good horror movie, but she isn't much of a fan.
He really loves a good horror movie, but she isn't much of a fan. All right, and our last one.
He really loves a good horror movie, but she isn't much of a fan.
He really loves a good horror movie, but she isn't much of a fan. Okay, and again, so that's the original audios that we have, and also my suggestions and feedback and things like that. All right, if you're on YouTube, I'm going to give you back your screen just for a moment. Thanks for bearing with me through all the technical stuff. Not sure why I wasn't sharing the audio originally. Okay, we can hide that sentence now. There were really quick. One last thing I wanted to squeeze in before I have to teach. I received some words from people that people had questions about. So I just wanted to kind of run through these. And some of these I may actually make a video on. So for instance, like I think it was like war and worm and things like that. People had questions about. So I'll definitely probably make a video on that. Ooh, this got messy. Sorry that if you're on the YouTube, sorry that I just kind of ran together into one long box. But let me sit up a little bit higher so you can see my mouth in case you want to take a look at my mouth position and things like that. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of just go over these words. I'll say each of them twice just so you have it. And again, some of these words we will discuss in more detail in a future, in a future video. So our first one, okay, Sierra Leone. Sierra Leone. It's always hard, like with places that are in other countries or like are coming from other languages and then putting them into English because obviously there's going to be a difference, in how they're pronounced. But yeah, so that's how I do the first one. It's like Sierra Leone. I think for the next word, you're going to see a couple different pronunciations for it. You'll see some people that say Casablanca. But you may also hear some people that say Casablanca. But again, for instance, like the movie with that name, Casablanca. David sends a message. I didn't receive my recording. Oh, no, I did not receive your recording. David, can you give me a link? If you give me a link, I can take a look at it. I have to run in like 7 minutes. So if you can send me a new one really quick, I'll be happy to take a look at it. And also, who was sending? I think it was Seashell. Seashell, if you're able to do the same, let me know. Yeah, sorry, David. So again, Sierra Leone, Casablanca. Language. What a great word for us, right? Language. A couple things here. Lang, ang. This is again in case of that a sound plus a nasal. It's like ang, ang. A little bit. Get that sound out of your nose. Heavy sound out of your nose. Lang. And then gwidge. It almost has like a W sound with a short I, like wi, but with a G sound at the start. Gwi. The last thing you want to be careful of with language, this word, language, is that the last sound is voiced. J, language. Question Mukat from in language is a nasal sound. It's not that the is necessarily a nasal sound, it's the NG sound. Lang, that sound. We make that NG like in song or wrong. That sound is a nasal sound. Okay. Our next word, English. Another word that so many language learners actually mispronounce, and it's such a common word, right? English. It's not ing, it's more ang. So that's the first thing. Short I sound. Ang. And then it's also going to be a short I sound for the second part. So it's not leash, it's lish. So short I. English. Okay, so it's not English, it's English. English. And in fact, even that L on English, you can almost treat as like a dark L type sound. In all honesty, you don't really need to make contact with the top of your mouth and your tongue. So it doesn't need to be like English. It can just be English, especially if you're speaking faster. But it's okay if you pronounce the L as well. Next one. I think Zobeda sent me this one. Ophthalmologist. Tricky spelling, obviously, if you look at it on paper. Ophthalmologist, I think that's the most common way that you're going to hear that pronounced. Ophthalmologist. Australia. This is another case where that L, treating it as like a dark L sound, might actually make it a little easier. Australia. Alia. See if you can pronounce that with the tip of your tongue down against the bottom of your mouth the entire time. Alia. I'll try to exaggerate a bit so you can see that my tongue isn't actually rising. So it's not alia. You can see it flipped up. I'm going to keep it down the entire time. Alia. Okay. Australia. Okay. Also note at the end that IA is like yeah, Australia. Question from Mukat. I have to use the tongue a lot more when pronouncing English words than speaking. My mother tongue. I think that's what you'll find when you're studying any language. Is it's going to feel weird in terms of like your tongue positions. You're going to feel like you're doing a lot more work. I think that's a very common experience. I guess I don't need my headset anymore. Other things. Algeria. So like Algier. That's your first half, and then the second part is going to have two parts. Ria. Algeria. Also making sure that at the end, that sound is really clear. It's not or like it's more Algeria. Okay. My Lang 8 people, I think my battery is finally kicking it. So if my stream just dies, I'm sorry. We had a really good run. We're almost done. You can see the whole video on YouTube. Next one, Albert Einstein. Key thing with Einstein is that you want to make sure that Albert Einstein, or like just like people in general, what you want to make sure is that you're stressing the last name. Okay. Einstein. Albert Einstein. Israel. It's like it's almost like saying Israel. It's like Israel. All dark L sound at the end. Israel. English we mentioned already. Worldview. It's like were, just like the past tense of the verb to be. Then the dark L sound, all, added D sound, d, world, and then view. And making sure that for the view part, that oo sound is relaxed enough. View. Similar ideas for the next word too. Girls, girls. One syllable, R to the dark L. It's like Earl, Earl. Notice again, the tip of my tongue is actually down. Earl, Earl. Girls, girls. Last thing here is that S sound at the end should be voiced because the L is voiced. It's like zzz, girls. Last words here. I'm just going to say them for the sake of time because I do need to run to my class. But again, there will be a video upcoming on on these sounds specifically. So again, worm, were, where, war. Again, worm, were, where, war. Oh no, David, I'm still not seeing the link. David, I'm sorry. This is all I got. that's all I see. David, if you send me the link or comment the link afterwards, I will respond with my own feedback for you. Okay. I'm sorry, I missed it during the live stream. All right, guys, I do need to run to my class, but thank you for spending a little bit of your Saturday with me. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. We recently reached, 2,000 subscribers. That's crazy because the first 1,000 took way longer. Second 1,000, like 8-9 months. So definitely things are speeding up. I really appreciate it. If you're one to recently subscribe, if you are the 2,000th subscriber, send me a message. It'd be great to know who you are. But yeah, thank you guys as always for your time. If we didn't get to your recording, again, you can send it to me on one of my socials or things like that, and I'll be happy to send you some feedback a little bit later. But you guys take care. Have a good day. Have a good night. Have a good afternoon. Check an eye out for our video coming out tomorrow.